It was the kind of morning that made Sarah believe, if only for a moment, that the world could still be good. Sunlight filtered through the tall oak trees lining her quiet suburban street in Maplewood, Ohio. The air smelled of freshly cut grass and blooming lilacs. Sprinklers clicked in the distance, birds chirped lazily, and somewhere nearby, the hum of a neighbor's lawn mower provided a peaceful white noise. On her driveway, her 6-year-old son, Ethan, crouched with chalk in his tiny hand, meticulously drawing a big, smiling T-Rex on the pavement. Sarah stood on the porch, a coffee mug warming her fingers. She wore worn jeans and a faded sweatshirt, her hair still slightly damp from the shower. To anyone else, she looked like a typical suburban single mom enjoying a slow weekend morning. But beneath that calm surface lived another version of Sarah, a version forged in discipline, strategy, and resilience. Years ago, she had trained some of the best soldiers in the country as a special forces instructor. That part of her life was behind her now, or so she thought. Ethan hummed quietly to himself. Every now and then, he'd pause and explain aloud which dinosaur he was drawing. Sarah smiled. In a world that often felt chaotic, her son was the reason she still believed in anything at all. Then came the noise. It wasn't loud, just the low rumble of an engine, but something about it made the hairs on the back of her neck rise. Her smile faded. Down the street, a black SUV rolled into view. It was a newer model, clean, polished, dark-tinted windows, and no license plates. It moved too slowly, not like a lost neighbor, more like a predator circling prey. The SUV stopped right in front of their house. Sarah's grip tightened on the coffee mug. Ethan, still drawing, didn't look up. Two men stepped out. They were dressed in navy blue uniforms that mimicked police gear, but didn't quite match. Patches on their sleeves read HOA enforcement, and each wore a utility belt with fake radios and what looked like stun batons. No badges, no name tags, no official vehicle decals. Everything about them screamed authority, yet nothing felt legal. Sarah placed the mug on the porch railing and descended the 3 steps slowly, positioning herself between them and Ethan. The taller of the two, a bulky man with a square jaw and mirrored sunglasses, spoke first. This home is in violation of Section 6B of the Community Code. Unauthorized markings on the driveway. Sarah's eyes narrowed. There is no Section 6B. What community are you even talking about? The second man, shorter, stockier, with thinning blonde hair and a smug expression, stepped forward, pointing at Ethan's drawing with his clipboard. Graffiti not permitted. We have a right to enforce compliance. Step aside, ma'am. She felt the shift in the air, a warning, a line being crossed. That's sidewalk chalk, she said firmly. It washes off with a hose. You're not with the real HOA. Even if you were, you don't touch my child. The man didn't even look at her. He walked straight toward Ethan. Sarah's heart dropped. YouTube +6 KDS online +6 myneighborhoodness.com +6. Ethan, she called, but the boy was confused. He turned, half standing, just as the fake officer grabbed him roughly by the wrist. I said, get your hands off him. Sarah's voice snapped into a tone she hadn't used in years. Low, commanding, deadly. The man turned halfway toward her. Step back, lady, or you'll be cited for obstruction. But Sarah had already started moving. Too far to reach Ethan before the man pulled him toward the SUV. Too far to intervene directly. Every muscle in her body tense for a fight she hadn't planned, but was now fully prepared to win. On the porch behind her, Sarah's elderly mother, Margaret, silent until now, pressed a button on her phone and whispered one word into her headset. Now, what happened in the next 10 seconds will be told again and again by neighbors, turned into viral clips, and sparked debates across the country. But for Sarah, it wasn't a spectacle. It was war. The taller officer, still near the SUV, suddenly jerked violently and stumbled to his knees. A gloved hand came from behind the hedge, locking around his neck in a textbook chokehold. Before he could scream, he was dragged backward, legs kicking, and disappeared behind the foliage. The second officer froze, still holding Ethan's arm. His grip loosened slightly. Ethan twisted away instinctively. Then Sarah was on him. She crashed into him shoulder first, knocking the wind out of his lungs. As he staggered back, she swept his leg from under him and slammed him down onto the concrete with one clean, practiced movement. He hit the ground hard, the air leaving his body in a stunned groan. Ethan stumbled back into his grandmother's arms. Margaret hugged him tight, whispering gently to keep his eyes closed. Sarah knelt over the man on the ground, pinning his arm behind his back with one knee. Her voice was ice, her presence a thundercloud coiled to strike again. "You just made the worst mistake of your life," she hissed. Around her, the quiet suburb was no longer quiet. Doors creaked open. Neighbors peeked out. Phones were raised, recording. Across the street, Mrs. DeWitt called 911 in a voice that trembled more from rage than fear. "What's going on?" someone shouted. "Did they try to take a kid? Is that Sarah? Oh my God, is he bleeding?" The man beneath her groaned. "We were just doing our job." "No, Sarah snubbed. You were pretending to be something you're not. And you laid hands on my son." She stood slowly, her breath steady now, her eyes burning with a cold focus. Sirens began to echo from the distance, far, but approaching fast. "Ethan, are you okay?" she called softly. The boy nodded from Margaret's arms, his lower lip trembling. "They said I was in trouble for the T-Rex," he mumbled. Sarah gave a soft smile, brushed his hair aside. "You're not in trouble, sweetheart. You made the best-looking dinosaur I've ever seen." The man on the ground groaned again. She looked back at him with disgust in her voice. "You messed with the wrong mother." Behind her, the taller man who had disappeared into the bushes was now zip-tied and moaning beside an overturned lawn chair. Sarah's younger brother, Marcus, calm as always, emerged from the backyard, wiping his hands on a gardening towel like he'd just finished trimming a hedge. "They're both secure," he said. Sarah nodded. "I figured you'd handle him." Marcus shrugged. Guy moved like he thought he had backup. "Sloppy." The shorter man on the ground whimpered again. "I don't think you understand who you just messed with," Marcus said, slipping on latex gloves and walking closer. "You really should have done your homework." Margaret had already taken Ethan inside and locked the door. From the window, the boy clutched his plush stegosaurus, eyes wide but safe. Sarah crouched beside the shorter man again. "Names," she demanded. "Who sent you?" He hesitated, then stammered. "We work for the HOA enforcement team. We're just doing compliance." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "No bikes, no ID, no car decals, nothing filed with the actual HOA office. You really thought I wouldn't know the difference between compliance and coercion?" Marcus scoffed. "And dragging a 6-year-old toward your SUV over chalk art? That's not compliance. That's a felony." The man tried to reach into his vest. "Big mistake." Marcus intercepted the motion instantly, twisting the man's arm back until something popped and the device, a plastic stun baton, clattered to the pavement. "Toy or not," Marcus growled, "that's still assault." He shoved the man's head back down to the concrete. He didn't move again. Margaret cracked the door open just wide enough to call out, "Cops are about 2 blocks away." Sarah nodded. Her gaze fell to the SUV. Tinted windows. No plats. Every detail calculated. This wasn't random. "Marcus," she started, her voice tense. "I know," he said. "They've done this before." They were expecting fear. And they got fury. More neighbors came outside now, inching closer. A few stood with arms crossed. Others had their phones up, recording silently. "What kind of scam is this?" Marcus asked the man still face down. "Snatch a kid, scare the parents, extort money? Or is it something worse?" No answer. Sarah leaned close, her voice steady. "You might want to talk when the real cops get here. You might still have a shot at a deal. Or you can let everyone keep thinking what they already suspect." That got a reaction. Before he could speak, flashing lights washed over the street. 2 squad cars pulled in fast, engines still running. Officer Chan, tall and stocky, stepped out of the first. "What the hell's going on here?" Sarah raised her hands calmly. "I'm the homeowner. These 2 men attempted to abduct my son pretending to be HOA officers. They're not legitimate. We've restrained them. No weapon seen except a fake baton." Officer Chan scanned the scene, The battered man on the driveway. The zip-tied one moaning in the backyard. Sarah's poised stance. Then Marcus stepped forward. She trained half the people you probably served with. Chan's eyes flickered. You did this. Sarah didn't answer. She didn't have to. Within minutes, crime scene tape cordoned off her driveway. Officer Green, Chan's partner, took statements while Officer Chan radioed for backup. One of the imposters had gone eerily quiet. The other had started to cry. Sarah crossed her arms. They were after my son. But it wasn't just us. Detective Rowe arrived 10 minutes later, plain clothes, thick file in hand, and a deep sigh on his lips. You're not the first, he said. We've had 4 similar incidents this week. Black SUVs, fake codes, sidewalk chalk violations. One parent paid a bribe. One kid was driven around the block. We didn't have footage. Or names. Until now, Marcus said. Officer Green opened the SUV's trunk, and everything changed. Inside, zip ties, rope, a clipboard of fake citations, a burner phone, a plastic bin full of printed maps, photographs, homes, kids, playsets, a hit list. Rose's jaw clenched. That's conspiracy to commit kidnapping. The neighborhood gasped. Phones went up again. Sarah stepped forward. What were you planning to do with my son? The man wouldn't answer. So she crouched low. You thought I'd panic. You thought I'd freeze. You thought this was just another quiet street. She stood. You picked the wrong family. They loaded the men into separate cars. Neither resisted. But the shorter one glanced once more at Sarah before the door closed. He's going to try and spin this, she said. Doesn't matter, Marcus replied. They're on every camera in a 10-house radius. You gave them what they needed. No, Sarah said quietly. They gave it to me when they touched my kid. Detective Rowe walked up. MS. Walker, would you be willing to make a formal statement at the station? I will, she said. But first I need to make sure Ethan knows he's safe. You're the reason he is, Rowe said, his voice dropping. And thanks to you, a lot of other kids are too. Sarah gave a single nod and walked inside, where Margaret waited with the door open. Are the bad guys gone? Ethan asked. Sarah knelt beside him. Yeah, baby. And they're never coming back. That night, the video went viral. First on a local forum, then Reddit, then everywhere. Ohio mom body slams fake HOA enforcer became a headline. TikToks, hashtags, commentaries. But Sarah didn't care about any of it. She sat on the edge of Ethan's bed, watching him sleep, one arm curled around his stegosaurus. He was safe. That was all that mattered. And across the country, a message rang clear. You don't mess with the wrong kid. Because sometimes justice isn't something delivered in a courtroom. Sometimes it starts on a driveway. And sometimes it comes from a mother who remembers how to fight.